Hey, it's fully funded here. I retired in my 30s as a millionaire, and now I'm living off passive income. Let's talk. Okay, so I want to talk about why I think most dividend ETFs and funds are just not that good. And as you guys know, I have invested around $2 million plus in SCHD, which is the Schwab Dividend Index, which is basically a 3.5% yield that has 10% dividend growth rate and healthy price appreciation. Now, that's pretty much the gold standard and as good as it gets, and it's automated as well with amazing tax advantages, all qualified dividends, and technically speaking, I'm able to get around 120K in my unique situation tax-free, the first 125K, and then even after that being billed very favorably compared to active income or just mixed income. Now, that being said, let's look at the alternatives. There are other alternative dividend funds out there, and people assume that I'm a fan of them, which I'm not. So this VYM, that's one of Vanguard's dividend counterparts. So that pays around a 2%-ish yield, which is significantly lower, especially we're talking about retirees between the net worth of 500K to 5 million is in that range, right? We talk about capital efficiency. To me, that's not that capital efficient if there's stuff like SCHC that can beat that in yield. But also, let's talk about the dividend growth rate, right? So typically speaking, VYM dividend growth rate was like, 5% or something. It's good, but not great. So I'm getting a lower yield plus lower growth rate. I mean, I would say if I want to have a lower yield, at least give me a higher dividend growth rate to the very least to compensate. But no, it doesn't really do that. And price-wise, I think they both move similar in prices. I think long-term SHD still has done a better job, but price-wise, they still move decently. That's VYM. That's like probably one of the biggest contenders. There's another one called FDVV, which is Fidelity's. This one is a little bit higher yield than the VYM, but still generally lower than SHD, which is around 3% compared to SHD 3.5% on average. However, the dividend growth rate is also, first of all, dividend growth rate is not that stable. It's still new and it's not as good. So, but it's supposedly, they say it has good growth appreciation, potentially price appreciation. However, it depends what cycle you're in. And at this time, it's doing okay. It's cyclical, right? And again, when you're in retirement, you want to have cash flow that's predictable and reliable. You don't want to have one time it's up, one time it's down. Not during retirement, okay? And I'm in retirement, right? So yeah, that's not that good. Let's talk about VIG, Vanguard. This one is a very popular one. People talk about, oh, well, it's a low yield, but you can get great dividend growth rate. That's the thing, and some good price. Well, for me, if I just want price appreciation, I'm not going to use VIG for price appreciation. There are much better funds for that. I'd rather use SCHG or QQQ for price appreciation. And in terms of the yield, so the yield is like 1%. Like, what am I going to do with that? Right? So it's very capital inefficient for a dividend fund. And the fact that SHD has just as good of a dividend growth rate, maybe slightly even better, it's just like I'm going to higher yield plus I'm getting the same dividend growth rate as VIG. It's just ridiculous. So again, as you guys can see, when you look at what's out there, there's only one that actually can be capital efficient, right? Which is close to that 3.5 to 4% range. That's as tax efficient as it gets. Now, if we look at other things with higher yields, they're typically slower. I think there's one called I forgot the ones, but there's some other ones at Noble. And yeah, there might be 4%, 5%, a little bit higher than SHD, but the big compromise, the dividend growth rate significantly lower. And also their price appreciation, it's not really there that much either. You're kind of stuck there. So like I said, when you look around, like all of them have an issue, right? Whether it's the price appreciation, whether it's dividend growth rate, or whether it's the yield, right? Like a comfortable yield that makes sense, where you're getting the best of everything. So again, the issue is just capital efficiency. I think most of them just aren't capital efficient compared to the index of SCHD, the methodology that it uses. So that's why SCHD is a clear winner, and I don't like most of these different ETFs. But anyways, I don't want to bash them. They're still okay, but I just don't really see a strong place in my portfolio for them. The only other fund I would probably get is a SCHY, which is the international version. That still pays qualified dividends.